Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy.
Carol sat on the kitchen counter, watching her husband's usual impatience. Steam from the coffee filled the air between them, and Jim's frustration was clear. His voice broke the silence, sharp and to the point. "Where's my coffee?" Carol replied, calm and simple. "Right there, dear. Second row, behind the juice. You know I put it there." Jim grabbed it quickly. "I need to get out of here." 20 minutes later, Carol sat with Beverly at her sunny breakfast table. Beverly's house always felt like a peaceful place. Plants everywhere, soft cushions on every chair, and no sports stuff around. "He's getting worse," Carol said, holding her mug. "Yesterday, he told me I loaded the dishwasher wrong." "The dishwasher, Bev." Beverly raised her eyebrows. "After 20 years of marriage, suddenly you can't load a dishwasher?" "Apparently not, and last week, he reorganized my spice cabinet because it wasn't efficient. Now I can't find anything. That man needs a serious attitude adjustment." Beverly leaned back in her chair, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "You know, my cousin Linda had a similar problem with her husband." "What did she do? Therapy?" "Something more creative." Beverly's lips curved into a smile. "She feminized him." Carol nearly choked on her coffee. "She what?" "Hear me out. Her husband was this big macho type too, always criticizing, always knowing better. So she challenged him. If being a woman was so easy, why didn't he try it? Long story short, he spent 6 months living as a woman. Completely changed his perspective. Jim would never agree to that. Linda's husband didn't exactly volunteer either. Beverly stood and walked to her bookshelf, pulling out a photo album. "Look, here they are, last Christmas." Carol stared at the photo. A woman with shoulder-length brown hair stood next to Linda, wearing a green dress and pearls. Only the facial structure gave away that this had once been Linda's husband. "That's him?" "Her, actually. Goes by Patricia now. Much happier, and their marriage has never been better." The seed of an idea took root in Carol's mind. How did she convince him? Started small, a lost bet here, a costume party there. Before he knew it, he was Patricia full-time. Beverly closed the album. The trick is making it seem like his idea. Carol drove home with her mind racing. The house stood empty. Jim wouldn't return from work for hours. She climbed the stairs to their bedroom, opening her closet with new eyes. Her dresses hung in neat rows organized by color. Jim's side contained nothing but suits, polo shirts, and khakis. Her phone buzzed. Beverly had sent a text. "Thinking about our conversation. I have some things that might fit Jim if you're interested. Left over from when my ex lived here." "What size?" Carol found herself typing back. He was about Jim's build. 6'1", broad shoulders. "The clothes are yours if you want them." Carol made her decision. "I'll be right over." Beverly's spare room contained 3 boxes marked donation. Carol opened the first one to find dresses in various styles. A-lines, sheaths, even a few sundresses. The second held shoes, size 11. The third contained accessories, jewelry, scarves, and a makeup kit. "Take whatever you need." Beverly helped her carry the boxes to her car. "And remember, confidence is key. If you act like this is perfectly normal, he'll be more likely to go along with it." That evening, Carol prepared Jim's favorite dinner: steak, baked potato, and Caesar salad. She opened a bottle of wine, letting it breathe while she changed into the black dress she'd worn on their anniversary. "Smells amazing in here." Jim entered the kitchen, loosening his tie. His expression softened at the sight of dinner. "What's the occasion?" "Can't a wife cook for her husband?" Carol poured 2 glasses of wine, handing him one. Dinner progressed smoothly. Jim complimented the steak, even helped clear the plates. Carol waited until they'd moved to the living room, refilling their wine glasses. "I've been thinking about what you said this morning." She curled up beside him on the couch. "About the dishwasher." His body tensed. "Carol, I didn't mean—" "No, you were right. I've been doing things my way for so long, I never considered there might be a better method." She sipped her wine. "It made me realize how set in our ways we've both become." "What do you mean?" When's the last time either of us tried something new, stepped outside our comfort zones? Jim shrugged. I went to that wine tasting with you last month. And complained the entire time? She kept her voice light, teasing. I'm talking about really challenging ourselves. Like, remember in college when you played Lady Macbeth? That was different. It was Shakespeare. The drama department needed someone tall enough to match Macbeth. You were brilliant in that role. The review in the campus paper called your performance revelatory. That was over 20 years ago. But you understood something then that I think we've both forgotten. The importance of seeing life from different perspectives. Carol set down her glass. What if we made a bet? What kind of bet? 1 week, you live as a woman, experience what my daily life is like. If you can handle it, really handle it, not just go through the motions, I'll reorganize the entire house your way. Kitchen, garage, everything. Jim laughed. You're joking. I'm completely serious, unless you don't think you could do it. Of course I could do it. Being a woman isn't that complicated. Prove it. The challenge hung between them. Carol watched Jim's face, saw his pride warring with logic. 1 week? He drained his wine glass. And if I win, you'll stop complaining when I improve things around here? If you can last the full week, yes. Deal. He held out his hand. Carol shook it, hiding her smile. Start tomorrow. It's Friday, so you'll have the weekend to adjust before work on Monday. Wait, work? A full week means everything, Jim. Work, errands, social obligations. Otherwise, it doesn't count. His confidence wavered. I can't go to the office dressed as a woman. Why not? Women do it every day. Carol stood, smoothing her dress. Unless you're backing out already? No. His jaw set in that stubborn line she knew so well. I'll do it. Good. I'll start your transformation in the morning. Carol barely slept that night. When dawn broke, she found Jim already awake, staring at the ceiling. Having second thoughts? No, but uncertainty colored his voice. How does this work exactly? First, a shower. You'll need to shave everything. Legs, underarms, chest if necessary. She handed him a pink razor and shaving cream. Take your time. It's harder than it looks. An hour later, Jim emerged from the bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist. His newly smooth skin looked strange against his masculine frame. This feels weird. You'll get used to it. Carol had laid out clothes on the bed, a matching bra and panty set in pale blue, a knee-length navy dress with 3/4 sleeves, and nude pantyhose. These should fit. How do you know my size? I've been buying your clothes for 20 years, Jim. I know your measurements better than you do. He picked up the bra with 2 fingers. This is necessary? Would you go to work without underwear normally? Same principle. Carol demonstrated how to put it on. Hooks in front, then rotate. The straps adjust here. 20 minutes of struggle later, Jim stood before her in the complete outfit. The dress hung awkwardly on his frame, the pantyhose already showing a run near his ankle. Shoes? He looked down at his bare feet. Carol produced a pair of black flats from one of Beverly's boxes. I'll start with these. Heels come later. I am not wearing heels. I'll see. She guided him to her vanity. Now for makeup. Is that really... Do I leave the house without makeup? Carol arranged her cosmetics. Neither will you. She started with foundation, teaching him to blend from the center outward. Concealer under the eyes, powder to set. She kept the eye makeup simple, neutral browns and a thin line of liner. Hold still. She uncapped a lipstick in dusty rose. Purse your lips? Perfect. Jim stared at his reflection. The makeup softened his features, though his square jaw and thick brows still read masculine. Your hair needs work? Carol ran her fingers through his short brown waves. But we can style it forward for now. Eventually, you'll need to grow it out. The week will be over before that matters. Of course. She picked up a pair of small gold studs. These are clip-ons. Every woman wears earrings. My ears aren't pierced. That can be arranged if you last the week. He submitted to the clip-ons, wincing at the pinch. Carol stepped back to survey her work. One more thing. She opened her closet, pulling out a purse in black leather. This was my old one. You'll need it for your wallet, keys, lipstick, for touch-ups. I know what a purse is for. Then you know a woman never leaves home without one. She handed it to him. How do you feel? Ridiculous. You look nervous, but not ridiculous. Carol grabbed her own purse. Come on, we're going to breakfast. What? No, I can't go out like this. Like what? Like a woman? I do it every day. She headed for the door. Unless you're giving up already. Jim followed her to the car, clutching the purse like a lifeline. He folded himself into the passenger seat, tugging the dress down over his knees. Where are we going? The diner on 5th Street. Public enough to count, casual enough that no one will pay much attention. The drive took 10 minutes. Jim spent it adjusting his dress, checking his lipstick in the mirror, and gripping the door handle. Relax. Carol parked near the entrance. Confidence, remember? Walk like you belong. They entered the diner together. The hostess smiled, grabbing 2 menus without a second glance. She led them to a booth by the window. Can I start you ladies off with some coffee? Jim's voice caught. Carol answered for both of them. Yes, please. 2 coffees and water. When the hostess left, Jim leaned across the table. She called me a lady. Because that's how you're presenting. Get used to it. Carol opened her menu. Order something light. That dress won't hide a food baby. I'll have my usual, bacon and eggs. In that outfit, try again. He glared but reconsidered. When the waitress returned, he ordered yogurt parfait and wheat toast. His voice pitched higher than normal, an awkward attempt at sounding feminine. Just use your regular voice, Carol advised after the waitress left. Forcing it sounds fake. They ate mostly in silence. Jim kept touching his face, smudging his lipstick. Carol handed him a napkin. Blot, don't wipe. You'll need to reapply after eating. This is exhausting. Well, come to my world. She signaled for the check. Ready for phase 2? There's more? Grocery shopping, then the mall. You need a complete wardrobe for the week. His face paled. The mall? On a Saturday? Problem? What if someone recognizes me? Then they'll see Jim trying something new. Nothing wrong with that. Carol left cash on the table. Besides, your makeup changes your face more than you realize. The grocery store proved easier than expected. Jim pushed the cart while Carol selected items, just another couple running weekend errands. He relaxed incrementally until they ran into their neighbors in the produce section. Carol! Martha waved from beside the apples. Her husband Tom stood beside her, comparing prices. Fancy seeing you here. Carol's pulse jumped, but she maintained her smile. Martha, Tom, lovely day for shopping. Martha's gaze moved to Jim, curiosity open on her face. Carol took a breath. This is Elizabeth, my cousin from out of town. Elizabeth, these are our neighbors, Martha and Tom. Jim stood frozen. Carol nudged him gently. Nice to meet you, he managed, voice carefully neutral. Come to town, Martha beamed. How long are you visiting? A week, Carol answered. Maybe longer. We're playing it by ear. Elle, if you need anything, we're right next door. Martha squeezed Jim's arm. Any cousin of Carol's is family to us. They chatted for another minute before parting ways. Jim waited until they'd turned the corner before speaking. Elizabeth? You needed a name. It suits you. I can't believe they bought it. Why wouldn't they? You look the part. Carol selected tomatoes with practiced efficiency. The mall will be good practice. You can be Elizabeth all day. The shopping center bustled with weekend crowds. Carol led Jim, Elizabeth now, through department stores, selecting dresses, skirts, blouses. She chose colors that flattered his skin tone. Jewel tones, rich browns, cream. Try this one. She held up a wrap dress in emerald green. The cut will work with your shoulders. In the fitting room, Elizabeth struggled with zippers and hooks. Carol helped when necessary, teaching the tricks women learned through years of practice. This is actually comfortable. Elizabeth emerged in a burgundy sheath dress that skimmed her figure perfectly. Wait until you discover yoga pants. Carol added the dress to their growing pile. Now for underwear.
I have what you gave me. One set won't last a week, plus you need different styles for different outfits. She led the way to the intimates department. Strapless bras, shapewear, proper fitting pantyhose. Elizabeth's eyes glazed over at the array of options. Carol selected practical pieces in neutral colors, adding a few prettier sets. Why does everything have lace? Because women deserve to feel beautiful, even in clothes no one sees. Carol held up a silk camisole. Trust me, nice underwear changes how you carry yourself. They spent 3 hours shopping. Elizabeth's feet hurt despite the flats. Her shoulders ached from carrying the purse. The makeup felt heavy on her skin. How do you do this every day? She collapsed into the car, surrounded by shopping bags. Practice and comfortable shoes. Carol started the engine. You did well today? Ready for tonight? What's tonight? Dinner with Beverly. She invited us over. No? Elizabeth's voice turned firm. I can't face anyone else today. You already told Martha we'd see how long you're visiting. Beverly will wonder why my cousin isn't social. Carol pulled into traffic. Besides, she makes excellent lasagna. At home, Elizabeth immediately kicked off the flats. She started toward the couch, then caught herself. Dress will wrinkle, she muttered, heading upstairs to change. Carol smiled. Small victories. That evening, Elizabeth descended the stairs in the burgundy dress and low heels. Carol had insisted on practicing. Her makeup had been refreshed, lipstick carefully applied. You're getting the hang of this. These shoes are torture devices. But Elizabeth walked steadily enough, hips swaying slightly to maintain balance. Beverly greeted them with warm hugs. She showed no surprise at Elizabeth's appearance, chatting easily as she poured wine. Carol tells me you're visiting for the week. What brings you to town? Elizabeth glanced at Carol, who nodded encouragingly. Just needed a change of scenery, some time to find myself. I understand completely. Sometimes we need to step outside our normal lives to gain perspective. Beverly led them to the dining room. I hope you like Italian food. Dinner conversation flowed naturally. Beverly asked about Elizabeth's interests, her work, her plans for the week. Elizabeth found herself creating a whole persona, a marketing consultant taking a sabbatical, interested in art and cooking. You must see the museum while you're here, Beverly suggested. They have a wonderful exhibit on American Impressionists. I'd like that. Elizabeth sipped her wine carefully, mindful of her lipstick. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Carol excused herself to the bathroom, leaving Elizabeth alone with Beverly. You're doing wonderfully. Beverly's voice dropped to a conversational level. How are you finding the experience? Elizabeth stiffened. You know? Carol's my best friend. Of course I know. Beverly smiled. My ex-husband went through something similar. It saved our relationship, even if we ultimately divorced for other reasons. This is just a bet, 1 week. If you say so. Beverly refilled Elizabeth's wine glass. But I've seen how you've relaxed as the evening went on, how you've stopped checking your makeup obsessively. You're already adapting. Carol returned before Elizabeth could respond. They stayed another hour before heading home. Elizabeth remained quiet during the drive. You okay? Carol pulled into their garage. Beverly knew the whole time. She's perceptive and supportive. Carol touched Elizabeth's hand. You were wonderful tonight, natural even. I made up an entire life story. Sometimes we need fiction to find our truth. Inside, Elizabeth went straight upstairs. Carol heard water running, drawers opening and closing. She gave her space, understanding the need to process. Sunday dawned bright. Carol found Elizabeth at the kitchen table, wearing the emerald wrap dress and reading the paper. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Elizabeth had already done her makeup, though the lipstick showed teeth marks. I keep thinking about tomorrow. Work? How can I walk into my office like this? My team, my clients? The same way you walked into that diner yesterday, with confidence. Carol poured coffee for both of them. What's the worst that could happen? I lose my job, my reputation, everything I've built. Or you gain understanding, empathy, respect for what your female colleagues navigate daily. Carol sat across from her.
This isn't about humiliation, Jim, Elizabeth. It's about growth. Elizabeth's hands tightened around the coffee mug. I can't back out now. You could. I wouldn't think less of you. Carol meant it. But I think you'd think less of yourself. 1 week. Elizabeth stood, smoothing the dress. I can do anything for 1 week. Monday arrived too quickly. Elizabeth stood before the mirror in a black pencil skirt and white blouse, the outfit Carol had deemed professional but not flashy. Low black pumps completed the look. Breathe. Carol adjusted Elizabeth's collar. You've got this. The drive to work took 20 minutes. Elizabeth parked in her usual spot, then sat frozen. Through the windshield, she could see colleagues entering the building. I can't. But even as the words left her mouth, she opened the door. The walk to the entrance stretched endlessly. Each click of heels on pavement sounded like thunder. Morning! The security guard barely glanced up as she swiped her badge. The elevator ride tested every nerve. 2 men from accounting stepped on at the 3rd floor, discussing weekend sports. They nodded politely, but showed no recognition. Elizabeth's office door had never looked so welcoming. She slipped inside, closing it firmly. Her desk looked the same, files stacked neatly, computer humming. Only her reflection in the dark monitor showed the change. A knock interrupted her spiral. Come in? Her assistant Daniel entered with a stack of reports. Good morning, Ms. Elizabeth. Her voice came out steady. I'm covering for Jim this week.
Family emergency. Oh no, I hope everything's okay. Daniel set the reports on her desk. Do you need the morning briefing, or did Jim fill you in?
Better go over it, just to be sure.
They spent 30 minutes reviewing the week's priorities. Daniel showed no suspicion, treating her with the same professional courtesy he showed all senior staff. When he left, Elizabeth sagged in her chair. The morning progressed in similar fashion. Colleagues accepted the explanation of Jim's absence without question. Elizabeth found herself falling into familiar work rhythms, the dress and heels becoming background noise to spreadsheets and emails, until the lunch meeting. Elizabeth? Rob from sales appeared at her door. Ready for the client lunch? Jim usually drives. She'd forgotten about the standing Monday lunch with their biggest account. Of course, let me grab my purse. The restaurant buzzed with business crowd energy. Their clients, 2 men and 1 woman, waited at a corner table. Elizabeth's stomach churned as they approached. Gentlemen, Linda. Rob made introductions. This is Elizabeth, filling in for Jim this week. Hope everything's all right? Linda extended her hand. Family situation. Elizabeth shook hands all around, settling into her seat. But I'm fully up to speed on your account. The men launched into business immediately, but Linda studied Elizabeth with interest. I love your blouse. Ann Taylor? Yes, I think so. Elizabeth touched the fabric self-consciously. I have the same one in blue. Great quality. Linda smiled. It's nice having another woman at these lunches for once. The meal progressed smoothly. Elizabeth found herself contributing to discussions, her knowledge of the account unchanged by her appearance. But she noticed things, how the men talked over Linda, how the waiter addressed questions to the male clients first, how Linda's suggestions were dismissed until Rob repeated them. Excellent points all around. Elizabeth interrupted one such instance. Linda, your idea about restructuring the payment terms could save significant processing time. Linda's face lit up, and exactly, I've run the numbers. Back at the office, Elizabeth closed her door and kicked off the pumps. Her feet throbbed. Her face felt tight from the makeup. But something else stirred, a sense of accomplishment. She'd survived the first day. Tuesday brought new challenges. The skirt suit she'd chosen required different underwear. The lines showed through the fitted fabric. She spent 10 minutes adjusting, readjusting. Control top pantyhose, Carol suggested, watching the struggle. And a slip. More layers? We'll come to professional women's clothing. At work, Elizabeth remembered to sit differently, keeping knees together. She reapplied lipstick after coffee. She noticed the small discriminations, being interrupted in meetings, having ideas credited to male colleagues, the way conversation stopped when she entered the break room. Rough day? Carol asked that evening, finding Elizabeth soaking her feet. Henderson asked me to take notes in the budget meeting. I run that meeting. But Elizabeth doesn't. That's just it. Elizabeth dried her feet, wincing. They see the dress and make assumptions. My entire career reduced to accessories. Now you're getting it. Dawn's day, Elizabeth chose pants. Wide-legged trousers in charcoal gray with a coral blouse. The heels were lower, more comfortable. She'd learned to carry Band-Aids in her purse. Elizabeth! Linda caught her by the elevators. Coffee? I want to pick your brain about yesterday's discussion. They talked for an hour. Linda shared frustrations about the industry boys club, strategies for being heard, small victories won through persistence. You're different from Jim. Linda stirred her latte thoughtfully. More approachable. He's brilliant, but sometimes intimidating. Elizabeth thought of all the times she'd dismissed concerns as oversensitivity. People show different sides in different circumstances. True. Still, I hope you stick around. Could use more women in leadership here. That afternoon, Elizabeth volunteered to mentor the new female intern. She remembered her own early career, how hard she'd worked to be taken seriously. The intern reminded her of that younger self, eager, sharp, slightly overwhelmed. Confidence is key, Elizabeth advised, even when you don't feel it, especially then. Thursday's outfit was the green wrap dress. Elizabeth had mastered basic makeup, though eyeliner still challenged her. She'd developed a morning routine: shower, moisturizer, foundation, dressed before coffee to avoid spills. Team meeting in 5, Daniel reminded her. Elizabeth gathered her files, checking her reflection once more. The auburn hair Carol had styled that morning caught the light. When had she started thinking of it as her hair? The meeting included her entire department. Elizabeth presented quarterly projections, fielding questions with practiced ease. Halfway through, she realized she'd stopped thinking about the clothes, the makeup, the heels. She was just Elizabeth, doing her job. Great presentation. Mark from IT stopped her afterward. You explain things more clearly than Jim. He tends to get too technical. Elizabeth thought of all the times she'd prided herself on complex explanations, equating confusion with intelligence. Sometimes simpler is better. That evening, Carol found Elizabeth at her vanity, practicing with eyeliner. Getting the hang of it? Almost. Elizabeth blinked at her reflection. 2 more days. You sound disappointed. Not disappointed, just... Elizabeth set down the pencil. This isn't what I expected. What did you expect? To prove a point, that your life wasn't that hard. Elizabeth laughed, but it lacked humor. Instead, I'm proving myself wrong every day. Friday, Elizabeth dressed with extra care. The burgundy sheath dress, the one that made her feel confident. Her makeup application was smoother, more natural. The auburn hair fell in soft waves. Last day, Carol zipped the dress. How do you feel? Like I'm ending something before it's finished. At work, Elizabeth moved through her day with newfound purpose. She spoke up for female colleagues in meetings. She called out interruptions. She made sure Linda's ideas were heard and credited. You're on fire today, Rob commented after a particularly heated discussion. What's gotten into you? Perspective. Elizabeth gathered her files. I've been overlooking half our talent pool. That afternoon, Human Resources called. Elizabeth, could you stop by when you have a moment? Her stomach dropped. Had someone complained? Figured out the truth? The HR director smiled warmly. Sit, please. This is a bit unusual, but I've had multiple requests this week. Requests? For you to stay on permanently. Apparently you've made quite an impression. She leaned forward. I know you're just covering for Jim, but if you're interested in a full-time position... Elizabeth's mind raced. I need to think about it. Of course, just know you'd be welcomed enthusiastically. The drive home passed in a blur. Elizabeth found Carol in the garden, tending her roses. They offered me a job. Carol set down her pruning shears. Who did? HR. They want Elizabeth to stay. She sank onto the garden bench, not caring about the dress. Several people requested it. What did you say? That I'd think about it. Elizabeth touched her auburn hair. This was supposed to be a week, a bet. Things change. Carol sat beside her. What do you want? I don't know, I can't be Elizabeth forever. Why not? The question hung between them. Elizabeth thought of the week, the challenges, frustrations, but also the connections, Linda's friendship, the intern's gratitude, the way her team responded to a different leadership style. Because I'm not really her. Aren't you? Carol took her hand. This week, you've been more yourself than I've seen in years. Empathetic, thoughtful, present. That's just the clothes talking? No, the clothes revealed what was already there. Carol squeezed gently. Jim was a mask. Elizabeth might be who you really are. That weekend, Elizabeth avoided making decisions. She stayed in comfortable clothes, still women's but casual, leggings and oversized sweaters. She'd grown used to the smooth legs, the longer hair, the softer appearance. Sunday evening, Carol found her staring at the work clothes hung for Monday. The week's over. You won the bet. Did I? Elizabeth fingered the fabric of a silk blouse. Feels more like the bet won me. You don't have to decide tonight, or ever. Carol wrapped arms around her from behind. But know that I love who you've become this week. The consideration, the understanding, the way you see me now. I see you. Elizabeth turned in the embrace. Really see you. Everything you navigate daily, the strength it takes. So what happens tomorrow? Elizabeth looked at the clothes, dresses and suits and blouses, then at her reflection, the auburn hair framing a face that had grown familiar. Elizabeth goes to work. I'll figure out the rest as we go. Monday morning arrived with decision made. Elizabeth dressed in navy blue, her movements now practiced and sure. The makeup took 5 minutes. The hair fell perfectly. Morning! The security guard smiled in recognition. Have a good weekend, Elizabeth? Wonderful, thanks. Her office felt like home. Daniel brought coffee and the morning schedule. The burgundy dress hung behind the door. She'd started keeping a spare outfit at work, like all her female colleagues. Staff meeting at 9, he reminded her. Jim still out? Indefinitely. Elizabeth booted up her computer. Family situations can be complicated. The day flowed naturally. Meetings, calls, decisions. Linda stopped by to discuss a new proposal. The intern asked for advice on handling a difficult client. Rob deferred to her expertise in budget discussions. Elizabeth? The CEO appeared at her door late afternoon. Could I have a word? Her heart hammered. Of course. He closed the door, settling into the chair across from her desk. I've been hearing impressive things about you this past week. Just doing my job. No, it's more than that. He leaned forward. You've brought fresh perspective, energy. The team responds to you differently than they did to Jim. Different can be good. Exactly. Which is why I want to make your position permanent. Same salary and benefits as Jim's role, of course. He smiled. HR mentioned they'd already approached you, but I wanted to add my personal encouragement. I appreciate that. Take your time deciding, but know you have our full support. He stood. Need more leaders like you, Elizabeth. The drive home felt different. Not an ending, but a continuation. Carol waited in the kitchen, dinner simmering on the stove. How was your day? The CEO wants me to stay. Elizabeth set down her purse. Personally requested it. And? I'm considering it. She moved to the stove, inhaling the aroma. Smells amazing. They ate quietly, comfortable in shared silence. After dinner, Elizabeth helped clear the table. Her movements and heels were natural now, unconscious. I need to ask you something. Carol dried the last plate. If you stay as Elizabeth, what does that mean for us? What do you want it to mean? I want my partner, the person who understands me, supports me, sees me as an equal. Carol met her eyes. This week, I got that person back. Even if that person is Elizabeth, especially then. That night, Elizabeth stood before the bathroom mirror, removing makeup with practiced motions. The face revealed beneath was the same, yet different. Softer somehow, more open. Tuesday, she gave HR her answer. Wonderful! The director beamed. I'll process the paperwork. I'll come officially to the team, Elizabeth.
The news spread quickly. Colleagues stopped by to congratulate her, expressing relief that she'd be staying. Linda hugged her enthusiastically. "This is the best news. Need to celebrate. Drinks after work? I'd like that." The days settled into new rhythm. Elizabeth grew her auburn hair longer, the natural color rich in sunlight. She discovered preferences: wrap dresses over pencil skirts, low heels over high, lipstick in berry tones. "You're different," Carol observed one evening, watching Elizabeth cook dinner in a flowing sundress. "Different how?" "Comfortable, like you've stopped performing and started being." Elizabeth considered this, stirring the sauce. Jim was the performance. This feels real.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.